mate? You okay?
Yeah, getting there. Been a bit rough, lot of nasty
Yeah.
bugs going around at the moment.
Yeah, there are other, yes. Yeah, we've both been kind of unwell with it, really, haven't we? Yeah.
Yes, though I still managed to, and I have no idea how I did it. I actually managed to do a celebration of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, where I did an hour and a half of in two sets of going through it scene by scene, and then doing either reenactments where I play all the characters, or just straight readings from the book, and then doing it with a historical context, and then also aligning it with modern world and modern attitudes. And it went really well. And so I'm going to do some more books like that.
I'd heard that it went really well. I was gutted that I couldn't be there. And I'm just in awe of the fact that you were able to do that with this fuck awful cold bug, which at the moment, I mean, it's taken me till today where I feel as though I can take a pee without having a grown up come and help me. And yeah, you're there managing 2 hours in front of an audience, and yeah, yeah.
The next day, though, I wasn't managing even to ask for help to go for a wee. I just basically sat there thinking, we've been needing a new couch for a few years now anyway.
Yeah. Blame it on Peter. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got two dogs I can blame it on, so
yeah, you got two of them. I got Pete. I've got a 14-year-old son I can blame on him as well.
Yeah, that's what they're there for.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's how it's been. I know you've not been very well either in this last week or so.
Yeah, it's not been fun, but yeah, almost ready for Christmas. And by almost ready, I mean I've got nothing bought.
Which is as almost ready as most years, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to ask me the question. I'm waiting for you to ask me the question because I have got the shortest synopsis that we have ever had.
Oh my goodness! That's why I'm teasing it out. I'm edging this one, right? I'm edging.
The shortest story, but it's the shortest story, and it's got the shortest synopsis.
Okay. Ash, what have we been reading this week?
This week we have been reading The Pale Man by Julius Long. Would you like to hear the synopsis?
Yes, I was going to say, was that the synopsis? Yes, please.
A man goes to a hotel and dies.
That's the one I read. Yeah, that's definitely the one I read.
Yeah. I really liked it as well. I had no idea what I was going into with that one. And it was just so much damn fun.
Yes and no.
All right.
Yes, it was so much damn fun. Yes, it was brilliantly written. I really, really enjoyed it until the end.
Right.
And I think it's a modern thing. I think.
Right.
And bear with me on this one, because of the way it was being described of this pale man. I've seen this pale man, going to this hotel. It's obviously a thing they used to do back then quite often, actually, from all the stories we've read. And then this figure of the pale man going between the rooms and moving into different rooms.
Yeah.
Loved it. Really enjoyed it, especially when the old woman dies. You really got it going on in your head. Oh, my God, this is great what's going on here. But then when it turned out to be just death, I was a little disappointed. I wanted it to be a vampire.
Why?
I think I just wanted it to actually be a character that at the point when he was going to die, he could confront it. And that, it wasn't just this kind of because it was never written in the way that, in my mind, that you thought he was going mad. So when the actual bellhop or receptionist or whatever they refer to the concierge or whatever, states that there was nobody else in the hotel, and it all becomes very kind of it's now something that nobody else has seen. It just took a bit of the cynicism away, the sinisterness of it. away from me, and it just became this. It was really strange for me. It just didn't quite click in the way of it's just death.
I get what you're saying there. I mean, when I started listening to this one, at first I thought, oh, they're going to subvert expectations here. So my first thoughts were that the main narrating character was going to end up being the one who killed the Pale Man. I thought
Right. Okay.
it worked that way around. That the Pale Man was going to end up being the victim, and then as the story went on, I realised no, the Pale Man is sort of like coming to get him. He's definitely going to be the victim within this story. So I don't know whether that was because I'm unfamiliar with the work of Julius Long, and I was going into this not knowing what to expect and not knowing how he treated characters in other pieces of fiction. So I was getting that whole excitement of, oh, well, I don't know what he's going to do here. Is he going to take it this way? Is he going to take it that way? I get what you're saying, yeah. With it coming round to eventually being death that had come to take him, then yeah, there weren't really any surprises there. But I didn't really need to be surprised. I was sort of like kind of pleased with the way it played out to its own storyline. If it had been a vampire, I would have been there going, why? Why weren't there other vampire-y things happening earlier on?
But yeah, well, the thing is, to me, they were.
Right.
So it's like when you've got certain things. It's like me. You know me. I can pretty much read the most weirdest, surreal type stuff that goes on. As long as things sit within their own logic, I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
So here we have got death. We've got a man who is not feeling very well and going into this hotel, and he has brought death with him. And Death's just decided to go and kill everybody else in the hotel before getting round to him. Now, either that means that he's brought in some sort of plague, which means that everybody's dying because Death's been following him, or Death has just decided to completely and utterly ignore his list and go and take everybody out in a hotel before killing him. So effectively, in a very short period of time, this hotel has a very high death rate, which for me required something more nefarious in its approach, i.e. a vampire. So there were vampiric type things going on. He was in a room down the hall, then he was in another room, then he takes out the old lady, then he bypasses his room because he's playing with him at this point and goes to another room where he takes that one out. So there seemed to be an awful lot of killing going on for something that's actually only supposed to turn up when it's your turn to die.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. But no, if it had turned out to be, I was satisfied with it being death. Somewhere, death was definitely in there and playing. And this whole idea that death is there, like playing and fanning around with people, and decides to take out the old biddy who's in that room. And you're saying a lot of that. There was only the old woman that died, wasn't there? Before him.
It's the only one that he ever really describes, but he seemed to be going through these other rooms for some reason. So I was just
empty rooms.
Eh?
There were empty rooms.
Well, he never really describes them as empty rooms. He just said he's moved from this room to this room, then he's moved from that room to that room.
He said he thought that the guy was taking the piss for the poor staff who were having to sort of like get these rooms ready for him on a regular basis. So yeah, he's sort of like, it's a hotel that's empty apart from the old biddy, bloke about to die, and the guy on the reception desk. And yeah, I like the coziness of it. And you know, there's a brilliant part in what's it called? In Throw Mama from the Train, where Billy Crystal says to Danny DeVito, you've written a murder mystery where the guy in the hat kills the other guy in the hat. There were the only two characters in the story. There was no mystery there. And with this being a 14-minute story, you didn't need the mystery. You know that sort of like this character here is either going to live or he's going to die. And yeah, he's up against this other character who's likely going to kill him. And yeah, the character goes around, kills him, well, kills the old woman, moves, shifts, chess playery type moves, and then turns up there. Yeah, I thought it was neat in its simplicity. I mean, yeah, it could have had more. It could have had bells and whistles on it, but
no,
that would have detracted from it.
I don't agree. I'm not disagreeing with you on that, to be perfectly honest with you. It's just a conclusion. I thought the way it was written was really, really fantastic. And I thought the way it was actually done in a not particularly eerie way as well. It was done in a really kind of almost mystery way. It was a curious way that it was done. You were sat with this old guy in his curiosity of what was going on. You know, he had no fear of what was happening. And I loved that. I thought that was really, really sweet, which is, again, why I was kind of going for the possible confrontation, just the chat, that kind of bite, you know, that moment of sort of like realization, a bit like Let the Right One In, for example, when you get the realization of which way round the dynamic works, you know. And The Hunger was another one of those vampire ones where you think it's one way and then you realize the dynamic's the other, you know. Or there are so many different ways that dynamic can work, and I was really, really enjoying it. And just when it got to that point when you realized it's death rather than being any other kind of supernatural being, to me it just felt a little bit flat. Isn't the word I'm looking for either.
Disappointing.
Yeah, I was disappointed by it. I think it felt a little contrived to me, or a little empty in what it was trying to be. You know, it just almost like a little bit of a cop out. You know, that, oh, it was just death. You know, it's almost, it's not quite the equivalent of it was all just a dream, but death is one of those characters for me, unless it actually has this full character and is used, you know, in a much more sort of like developed way. It just becomes almost like a get out of jail clause of, it's a character, but we don't know who it is. Oh, call it death. You know, that's how it felt like to me. You know, it didn't need any more. It didn't need another 20 minutes. It didn't, like you were just saying, it didn't need all the bells and whistles. You know, to me, the surprise would have been if he actually spoke to him in that way. You know, if he actually, you had all this kind of stuff and just having that little bit of interaction. So the inevitable end is still the same at that point, but it didn't twist anything on that character for me. And that's the only point that I would say on this. It's not a hatred for this story at all, because it's beautifully executed, really, really well written. You know,
you raise an interesting point there of that there might have been something more if Death had actually communicated with him or spoken with him in some way other than just nodding heads at one another as they go along corridors. Excuse me. What would you expect Death to say to a character? Give me 2 seconds to close the door. I've got dogs barking. So, what would you expect Death to say to a character in a story like that?
Well, there's the you could take the Watership Down approach, couldn't you? Where the Black Rabbit is considered to be feared by all rabbits, and then right at the end when Hazel's there, kind of like you know, limp and old age, and then Death turns up as a friend. And so you got that kind of moment of just, you know, that kind of acceptance. Why was Death playing in that way? You know, like you said, the movement of chess, even if it's like a chess reference, if it's like checkmate, even if it's just kind of walking in and just going, you know, it's your time. Or even an acknowledgement that the other guy was trying to run away from Death. That the reason Death followed him there is because he'd gone there in order to try and... There didn't seem to be any form of interaction at all into why Death was decided to play with him or not do that with him, or, you know, there was it's sort of like a hunting attitude for something that he didn't need to hunt in a way. So just to have that kind of you're next, or long time, or, you know, something, I don't know, I'd have to sit down with it, I think, and sort of like really sort of push it in that respect, because in my head, if it was a vampire, he's just sort of like, you know, looking around, inviting for, you know, come in and said, you wanted to invite me to dinner. Well, here I am. And then that's where it ends. You know, that would have worked in that way. But for Death, because he kept saying, doesn't he wanted to invite him for dinner, never gets around to inviting him for dinner. And he keeps wanting to do all these like interactions, and to just give that payoff, to just do that kind of like, you know, we would go for dinner, but unfortunately you can't get out of bed now. Just that, almost like that kind of death's last word is the last word of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been watching, I think we're about halfway through Sandman on Netflix.
Oh,
And yeah, you've got Death as a character there who she's an attractive young lady who goes round and, like you said about Watership Down, she's incredibly friendly. She just sort of like coaxes people to accompany her.
yeah,
And yeah, sort of like says, "Oh, come with me." Yeah, there's a really harrowing part where she just picks a baby out of a cradle. And yeah, sort of like saying,
yeah.
"Oh, yeah, you didn't get along this time," and starts carting him away. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's where my brain's going, and I hadn't really realised it. Death doesn't kill people in my head,
Right.
and I think maybe I'm reacting against the idea that it does.
I
Do
mean,
you know
I
what I mean?
think the majority of people do die from that.
No,
Um,
they don't die of death. Death is the outcome of something else, isn't it? That's what Sandman does. And I suppose if you go back in like Greek mythology with the ferryman, the ferryman doesn't kill people. The ferryman is the one that takes them. So death is the one that comes and takes them when it is their time.
right.
So death playing with someone is, I mean, granted, it's a little bit Final Destination, but that's only because someone's cheated death. So if at the beginning or somewhere through the story we found out that he had cheated death, that he was trying to not be killed or taken by the Grim Reaper, and that he had some foreknowledge of this, then death is absolutely perfect at the end of it. And death is playing with him at that point because he has tried to cheat death. This is now the, like as Bill and Ted did the best version of it, isn't it? Where you challenge death in order to not be taken. If you win at Twister with death, that sort of thing, which gives that chess metaphor.
Isn't he actually trying to cheat death though by going away to recuperate after his?
Is he though? Is he, or is he just going away to recuperate? It actually, I mean, if you in the stuff that I read about the story, it's he goes away to this hotel because he's not feeling very well, and death follows him.
Yeah.
So death follows him to this point. So is he trying to cheat death, or has he just gone somewhere and death's followed him and gone, oh, hang on, there's an old lady here, two birds, one stone. That's what I mean. Is I suppose death's motivations in this story don't grab me to the same way as if it was something more nefarious.
But him going away on holiday to try and recuperate is trying to cheat death, isn't it? I mean, that's what we're all trying to cheat death at some level. I mean, I was taking headache pills because of this bloody awful cold. Because, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to kill me, but it's a nasty headache. So I'm trying to avoid the pain. I take antibiotics to cheat death.
But no, because that means that death is constantly is being cheated. I don't think it. No, because death is of its time, isn't it? The whole point is you can't cheat death. That's kind of the point of it. And anyone who does manage to actually cheat death, like the Deathly Hallows in the Harry Potter series, for example.
Right.
This is someone who actually manages to completely hide from death and therefore is not taken by death at the time when it's supposed to be happening and is therefore not a friend of death. Just going on holiday, it almost turns into a bloody Tony Hancock sketch at that point, isn't it? Something like that. What? He's cheating death by going to Butlins? It doesn't...
No, I think this is... I think there's a potential story here as well when you think the way that death has been cheated. If you look at sort of like the advent of penicillin and the way that that has stopped people from dying in droves, I mean, if death was personified and had been somebody that was going around reaping people en masse, those numbers have now dwindled to absolutely chuff all in comparison.
Well, I mean, only if we actually consider the process of the afterlife also takes on an aggressive capitalist front like we have done in the living, and he gets paid per soul reaped.
Right, death's getting paid here. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, otherwise, would it make any difference? That's always the philosophical point, isn't it? if you didn't get paid and it made absolutely no difference to how much you did and what your output was, anything that involves a number of things. So if less souls need reaping, well, actually, you could argue that more souls need reaping, don't you? Because the population went up. So even though people live longer, more people still die.
Actually, I would have said fewer souls because sort of like it counts.
Because
yeah,
because you're pedantic. Yeah. Oh, actually, no. I'm still going to go with the less because it would have been a mass rather than a number.
All right.
Just a physical mass of souls.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. Are you going to make a beeping sound next time you backpedaling like that, or?
I'll just bat it back at you. We'll play pedantic tennis. I was like, God, you can tell we're ill, can't you? We're off on surrealistic fucking journeys here.
One of the things I did love about this one, there's a reference to Hitler in there, and Hitler's mustache, saying that the receptionist has got a mustache like Hitler's mustache. And this is one that's written in 1934, which is it's unusual because it shows that Hitler was already a big player on the international stage, recognized physically, even in a world before we'd got such mass media communications as the internet. So you've got him, we've got this image describing Hitler's very distinctive mustache on the face of the receptionist.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's a number of different things. I just went on a very quick search there because I wanted to see what year The Great Dictator came out, Charlie Chaplin.
Right.
And that was 1940. So, we'd already sort of like gone into the Second World War at that point, or everything was on the brink of it. But I do know that the first female politician in the United Kingdom was a Conservative, and she was a Hitler supporter.
They're all Hitler supporters in the country.
I can't remember her name. It's Elizabeth something, her name is. And I'll have to look it up in a second. But she referred to Hitler as the man with a funny Charlie Chaplin moustache.
Oh, bless, yeah.
There you go. So the Hitler moustache, it was a big thing. I mean, at that time. So 1934, that would have been about the rise of the party, wouldn't it? That's the rise of the fascist party.
Yeah.
At the time. So he was obviously being anti-fascist with that line.
I think so, because the receptionist, even though he's meant to be sort of like a unambiguous and not really an influence within the story, he doesn't come across as a particularly sympathetic character.
No.
And that's almost certainly down to the mustache.
What I liked about this story, what I really liked about this story, is the hotel itself. I thought that was really, really, really fantastic. Having been someone who has grown up in seaside towns and spent my entire life in seaside towns and visiting many others, and actually living just down the road, we've got one here, haven't we? We do this from Blackpool, and just up the road we got Cleveley's, which is one of God's waiting rooms.
Yes.
And down where I grew up in Brighton, we had Eastbourne down the road and we had Bournemouth the other way, and they were, again, God's waiting rooms. But they used to say about Eastbourne that the population there was so old that the shop windows were actually bifocal.
Nice.
Right?
Like it.
So, and that's this hotel for me. I could see this hotel, Art Deco.
Yeah.
And really very straight corridors. You could see the decoration without it even being described. You knew the type of place it was, that this guy had gone to. Like you say, it's a recoup hotel. It's not like a holiday resort hotel. We've all seen them. They usually sat on a cliff top, where, and you just know they almost look like hospitals.
Yeah.
Even though they're hotels. And I thought that was fantastic. The setting was absolutely superb. And the little descriptions of where he would go and have his tea and go and have his lunch. It was just all really nice old man for the time, sort of wandering around the place, as a lonely figure, who never took up the never took up the time to have a wife. You know, what has he said? Is the loneliness of rather than the loneliness of a husband.
Rather than the loneliness of a bachelor.
The loneliness of a bachelor rather than the loneliness of a husband. That was it.
Yes.
What a line.
Yes. How come we've not heard more from this guy before?
Don't know.
Has he written many other things?
I don't know. All right, have a look at that one. I'll look up this woman's name.
Author of horror and detective fiction.
Detective fiction. Well, that would make sense for a time of writing, wouldn't it? Oh, it's not Elizabeth. It's Nancy Witcher Longhorn Astor. Otherwise known as the Viscountess Astor. There you go.
Is she the one that used to have sort of like arguments with Churchill regularly?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd sort of like said, she'd said, if you were my husband, I'd poison your tea. And he said, if you were my wife, I'd drink it.
Yeah, apparently she was a right battle axe. But she thought Hitler was fantastic and she gave loads of money. And Mussolini, she thought Mussolini was brilliant as well. So she was she's one of the reasons why, as me and you both, we want a much more equal society, that the middle classes to the upper classes have a much stronger patriarchal control over this country, and a lot over the world than we should have. And therefore, women who are the first at things should be celebrated a lot more. The women in science should be celebrated a lot more. The women writers that we try to celebrate a lot more. And there's a reason why even women fighting for rights don't even talk about her.
Yeah.
She's very problematic to the cause.
Somebody sort of like fangirling over Hitler and Mussolini. That's never.
Yeah, it is.
Well, she'd fit in with the current breed that we've got in Downing Street. So, he's written quite a few things, or has written quite a few things. Short stories, Dead Man's Story, Possession, Late Mourner, Walk by Day. A lot of this is short fiction that had been published in Weird Tales.
Oh, well, we'll have to go back and investigate some more of his stuff then. Because I've got to say, it's not this is not a question of a badly told story, which we have had in the past. I mean, we've had celebrated writers on here. I wish I could remember his name. There was that Irish writer where I think we both agreed that it's a good job that Bram Stoker actually stole his ideas because he did them better.
Yes.
But this is not that case. This is not a case of that. This is a case of a very, very, very well-written story that, and you're not going to, I've read many things where I've been dissatisfied at the end of something, not because of the whole, but just because the last idea didn't quite work for me. And I didn't turn it into a thing that I thought was shit. It just meant that on the whole, I enjoyed it, but I didn't quite like the way it ended. In fact, actually, Premature Burial was one of those for me. I really enjoyed Premature Burial up until the end. The end just didn't work for me in the same sort of way. And this one, I think, is a similar sort of thing. I think the whole thing is brilliant. And when it gets up to that, it's almost like sometimes you think, does the writer know what they're writing at a time? Have they got that last idea already? Or have they been waiting to get to that point to then deliver that idea? And to me, this feels a little bit like that. But only a little bit.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I suppose that's where a second edit comes in. And with this being such a short one, it could maybe have, suffered a second edit. But I'm on the other side of this one. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think partly that's down to the cold as well. The fact that it was well put together, well structured, and I didn't have to sort of like think, oh, hold on a second, let me think back to that part. And yes, that all makes sense. It just laid it out in nice, neat steps for me.
Yep, I will totally agree with you on that one. The structure of it was superb. And yeah, So it's one of those things of, I think it really comes down to a case of how your brain works in getting ahead of the writer, which can be a curse, to be perfectly honest with you. There are times when you sit there reading something that's actually very good, and because your brain has now decided how that story is going to then go, and when it doesn't go down that path, you almost kind of rebel against it and say, well, the writer's obviously shit because I wrote a better one than that, even though it's not. It's not a case of the writer being shit at all. It's just that they had a different idea than the one you had at that particular moment in time. And I think that's where this one lies. I don't think it's bad writing. I think I just had a different idea that I preferred to the one that he came up with.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said before, when it comes to reading things, I've got really simple, almost moronic tastes, and I just like being spoon-fed things as I go along. Anything that sort of like is intellectually challenging doesn't really work for me. But you are pretty much the same as Tracy, who, and I think I've said it before. We sat down a few years back to watch that Whitney Houston film. What was it called? What the fuck was it called? Whitney
Houston film.
Yeah, film. Whitney Houston.
Bodyguard.
Bodyguard. That was it. Yeah. Sat down to watch The Bodyguard, and before the opening credits had finished, Tracy just turned to me and said, "Oh, it's a sister that's done it." I thought, you can't even. There's no way you can fucking know that when the opening credits coming up, and then sat through 2 hours of that garbage, and yeah, it turns out it was a sister that had done it, and yeah, and I would have just been happy to sort of like go along with the whole thing and be spoon-fed oh, look, here's Kevin Costner. Oh, he's got a shiny sword. Oh, Whitney Houston. Yep, she's singing a song. And yeah, turns out a sister's done it. Yeah, 10 minutes before the end, I would like to have known that. Right at the start, it just fucked the whole thing over for me.
Sometimes, and again, there's a mindset in it, and it's where things get telegraphed too easily. And if you're attuned to those kind of signposts, you get it very quickly. I got the end of The Sixth Sense within the opening 15 minutes of the movie.
Right.
And I was sat there, and we were in the cinema, and I looked at Heather and went, I know what's going on. I'm not going to spoil it for you. And she went, no, tell me what you think's going on. And so I had to tell her that, and spoilers, right? Spoilers.
Yes.
Yeah. Bruce Willis is dead. Because to me, it was so obvious. It was just very, very obvious what was going on. It didn't detract from the film because it's a very, very well made movie, but it was just very, very obvious to me because it's all signposted. And there were some very clever bits that I didn't notice, but sometimes because they do signpost these things in order to be able to do that second watch.
Yeah.
A film that didn't work, that didn't happen to me was Shawshank Redemption. Didn't see that coming. I hadn't read the book. I hadn't read the short story. So I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't see it coming. And even when you go back and do a second watch of it, it's very well signposted. The signposting is done so within the logic of its own universe that it doesn't stand out. And I think something like The Bodyguard, because I had the same thing. Seriously, within the opening 10 minutes of The Bodyguard, I knew exactly what was going on. So the whole film becomes really dull and boring. Because I know what's going on, it doesn't hide it well enough, but then you can get the ones where they hide it so tight that they just don't tell you anything, and then you feel cheated, which is how I felt about The Usual Suspects.
No, I love The Usual Suspects.
Yeah, I know. I don't. I'm one of the unusual ones. I sit there and watch The Usual Suspect. I don't like anything where it relies so heavily on a twist that you actually cannot, in a month of Sundays, ever possibly guess. No, there's no evidence that what is happening at all until the very last part of it. And I just feel that breaks the contract of that kind of, if you've got a twist going on, there should always be an element, I think, of the contract with the audience. And that one just didn't have it. It just came and smacked you in the face with a cricket bat. A lot of people loved it because of that. And a lot of people go back and constantly watch the movie. And I can't understand how people watch that movie over and over again, knowing that the opening, 80 minutes of it are complete bullshit and didn't happen.
But it's all about the storytelling. It's all about the way Kevin Spacey is sort of like telling that story, and yeah,
Yeah, it's a nice little mechanism. It's easily parodied, because of the way it's done. But no, it didn't do it for me, I'm afraid. It's just one of those things of, and I'm not going to tell anybody that they should think, I can't believe you think that's a great movie, that sort of thing. There are some films, like anyone who says they think Mamma Mia is brilliant, I'd like to slap them around the face with a fish and say, listen to ABBA Gold. You'll have a much better time listening to people that can actually sing ABBA songs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a different matter. But when it comes to something like that, no, I get why people like it. I understand that completely. And I get it's a very twist on a theme, and I get the idea of that sort of stuff. It just wasn't for me.
And yeah, with Mamma Mia, I mean, I tried sitting through that several times, but Anna Siegfried, she couldn't hold a note if somebody stapled a fiver in her fucking hand. She's just
it's one of those. It is. It's they're called they're jukebox musicals. They call them, isn't they?
Yeah. And
I don't have the greatest respect for musicals, but I like things to happen within their own logic. So there are really, really strong musicals that do work for me. But when they actually have to rely on somebody else's songs, can't even write their own songs, immediately I'm not interested in what they're doing.
But it's like with Les Mis, when they made the version where you've got Ali G and Wolverine and other people in it, they're not brilliant singers. They're all right at singing. They're doing better than I could at singing. They're very good at the acting parts in between. But Les Mis is a musical. It's about the songs. And yeah, it's just, it lacks the impact.
Which is really surprising when you actually find out that a lot of the time they use different singers.
Yeah.
They don't even use the actual actors a lot of the time for them. There was a woman on Britain's Got Talent recently that sung one of the big, The Greatest Showman. And one of the big songs out of The Great Showman wasn't sung by the actress. It was sung by this woman.
Right.
She was the actual voice of it. So they do that quite a bit. And I was talking to someone else recently. He said one of their mates had sung like 80% of the songs in this other musical, this film version of something. So it's not even the actors singing half the time.
I mean, The Greatest Showman really, really pisses me off because we sat and watched it, and I think we were about 40 minutes into it, and I said to Tracy, is this the same song that they're singing right from the very start, or has it actually changed into a different one? And we couldn't work it out. So, yeah, I gave up on it and left her to watch it. And, yeah, and again, Wolverine is great as Wolverine, but why did they put him in other fucking films as sort of like Singy Man? Because he's not.
Yeah, I always think it's the point of, they always say, isn't it? When a TV program's coming to the end of its, like the arrogance of the actors when they do a musical episode. It's almost like any actor goes, well, now I've got so big, I can now be a music star. They all do it.
No, fuck off. No, one of the best episodes of Buffy was the musical episode.
It's shit.
It's brilliant.
It's terrible. It goes against its own logic. It's awful.
It works perfectly within its own logic. The logic actually fuels the whole notion that this singing and dancing demon has come down and is sort of like causing people to. Yeah, it works perfectly. Yeah,
it doesn't.
Yeah, it works.
It doesn't. It's people like it because they like the idea of musicals, and it's a parody of a musical rather than being actually something that sits with its own logic.
No, absolute horseshit. It contains itself beautifully, and it also has the season's story arc contained within it as well. Yeah, it's just got everything going for it.
It's dreadful. But anyway, we shall disagree on that one.
Right, yes.
You know how much I love Buffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely adore Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think it's amazing writing, but I felt that particular episode was nothing but self-indulgent twaddle.
No, it was perfect. Yeah, I've still got it on my phone. I've got the soundtrack. I listen to it regularly.
I can well believe liking the songs is one of those things. I'm a massive Tom Waits fan. I know a number of people that can't stand listening to him and think it sounds like a cat being dragged across a washboard, but I love that kind of thing. So I get the idea of loving the songs, but as a piece of that television was awful, dreadful, terrible.
Perfect. It was perfect.
Terrible.
It was absolutely wonderful. Yeah.
Self-indulgent nonsense.
The only part I didn't like was Dawn's ballet in the middle of it, but yeah,
Any of the music. Sit there and, oh, yeah, we'll do the whole lot. Any of the music. Where does the music come from? What's going on? Where's everybody? Why?
no, they were just
And, sudden dancing like that. Flash, you know,
so many
granted.
clever parts in it. There's one part where there's such clever parts in it. There's a part where Buffy goes in and she's about to fight the main baddie, and Giles goes up to Anya and Tara and he says she needs backup, and they go in as backup singers, and it's just such a clever spin.
It's a parody of it. It's honestly, it's taking the thing that gets me is it to me it's taking the mick out of the fans of Buffy, because it's taking the mick out of Buffy from within itself, and it's, you know,
no,
it should as a separate thing maybe, but not for me.
It worked beautifully. Yeah, it worked absolutely perfectly.
We're having many disagreements today. We've disagreed about the end of The Pale Man.
Yes,
and we're disagreeing about the musical episode of Buffy.
Yes. So I'll just mention Hush from Buffy, and both agree that it's the best things I've ever on TV.
Now, that was incredible.
Yes.
That was incredible. That was an amazingly brave piece of television.
It really was, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful thing. And I remember when I saw it, I couldn't believe they did a silent episode.
Yeah, that was just, yeah. And same season where they did The Body as well, which was just, Again.
Is that the same season as Hush? The Body is incredible. What amazed me with The Body is it wasn't long after my dad died.
Right.
And so I had as they were doing it, it was sort of like whoever wrote this and made this, you know, and I know it says Joss Whedon on it, but I don't always believe that. Really knew, really understood, because it's the way it goes through when she finds the body, and the way she walks through the house and the actions that she does blew me away. Blew me away.
I mean, I know that you don't like musical things, so chances are you've probably not watched many episodes of Glee.
No.
There was one episode in that we were watching our way through them because they were kind of fun and entertaining, and sort of like it was their nice, jaunty, cheerful, lots of singing, lots of happy American teenagers. So we sit down to watch an episode of it, and it's an episode where one of the cast members had actually died, and they just filmed it raw, and it was just fucking harrowing. It was just really, really upsetting to watch this whole thing, to see how they didn't mention how he died or what the causes of his death were. It was just sort of like the fact that this poor lad had been taken away, and it was just heartbreaking. Yeah.
And see, and Glee, I don't mind actually. I don't watch it because I know what it is. So I'm not, I know the music that comes from it, but it sits within its own logic. That's fine. It's a film about, it's a show about singing. It's about a cappella groups, isn't it?
Are you taking a shit on Buffy again?
No, I'm just saying it's in with its own logic. No, I started watching National Treasure last night.
Right.
They've made a TV series of National Treasure, right? And National Treasure has a couple of films. They are utter nonsense as movies, right? So I'm not being a movie snob or a TV snob or anything like that when I say it, because I will watch absolute shite like National Treasure, which is what it is. But it had a bit in it that annoyed me last night, because I had a guy playing a guitar in a bar.
Right.
And he picks up the guitar, right?
Right.
Plugged into just an amp, starts playing the guitar, and then there's bass and keyboards and drums.
That's how guitars work in films, isn't it?
Exactly. It's one of those, so you sit there looking at it going, where's the rest of the band? And where's the backing track? And where's he turning it on and off? And if there was a phone on a stand, you could get it, but it just, they keep doing it. And that's one of my problems with musicals, unless it, like the Little Shop of Horrors, works because they just right at the beginning, they just lay it all out to you. The backing singer tracks, the narrator being used as a singer. It's brilliant the way it's done. So all of a sudden, having huge amounts of music playing in the air from nowhere makes sense in that, because they've already established it. That's what it is. It's the same with Grease. It's the same with the Rocky Horror Show. It's the same with, trying to think of another one that I really like. When I went to see Avenue Q.
And that's it. This is down to your personal preferences. So it's down to, yeah, I'm trying to think of another one that I like. Yeah, the ones that I don't like.
Oh no, even the ones I don't like, I'll even say in Les Mis, even Les Mis, right? Take
Right.
the stage production of Les Mis. It sets itself up right at the beginning. It is a universe in which music just blurts out of the streets and comes from all over the place and nowhere and everywhere. Yeah, that's where it comes into a section of taste. Is okay? I don't like Les Mis, but I can understand why it works as a musical, and it's within the own logic of its own thing. That Buffy episode, which I can't get away from, it's already established a huge amount of universe where that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that happens. That happens whenever this demon arrives and starts.
No,
Yes.
that changes the entire. So music just appears from nowhere in the entire world, and he has complete control over it. Why would, if you had that much power? It's almost like the power of the poltergeist, isn't it? Oh, I'm a poltergeist. I have the great supernatural power, and I'm going to terrify you by moving this cup. Is that you have the power to be able to control an entire town of people? So we make them dance?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Don't you think
Because you're a demon?
Making people dance is a metaphor for control over people, surely. Having them jump and dance and do your bidding.
But the puppet master didn't control people like that.
Which puppet master?
Well, there was a puppet master in Buffy, if I remember rightly. Or was that in... See, even in Angel, didn't they? They turned him into a cuddly toy. I didn't like that either. Though the cuddly toy was brilliant. I didn't like the episode.
Yeah, they turned him into a Muppet type thing, didn't they?
Yeah, it's a really good puppet, and I love puppets, and it's really, really fantastic. But I didn't like it as an episode within everything else. Because it's that... No. Some things... If they make a Buffy the Musical on stage, or you have a separate film that's Buffy the Musical, yeah, fine, that works for me. But not... No. I shall not participate in the Once More with Feeling celebrations.
No, wrong.
Brilliant. Right.
Yes. So, Julius Long, yeah, not bad. We'll have to read some more of his stuff.
Absolutely. We will definitely have to read some more of his stuff.
So, what are we reading next week, Colin?
We're not.
Sorry?
No. There's something different next week.
Oh, what are we doing?
I've been thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. Right. And I think, we've done 60 odd episodes. We're going to do something very different. So next week,
it's not the naked episode, is it?
We're going to do the musical episode. We're going to do the whole thing in song.
Brilliant.
Just to be self-indulgent. No, we're going to do our own form of self-indulgence. I'm going to get some urban legends together. Right. 3 urban legends that I shall have in independent envelopes. You're going to pick one at random.
Right.
I'm not going to know what's in each of them either. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to find probably about half a dozen of them, and then I'll get Heather to put 3 of them in envelopes. So I don't know what's in the envelopes either. Right. We're then going to pick from those envelopes. You're going to pick one envelope out of the envelopes. And then going to open it up, and we're going to read the paragraph, which is a very, very brief, the short synopsis on that urban legend. And then we're going to discuss it on how we would take that urban legend and turn it into a short story.
Fantastic. Can't wait.
Okay. So it's a bit of a challenge. So get your creative head on for the next time, because that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to create our own synopsis between us based on the urban legend that comes out of this envelope, just to show people how it's done in our world effectively and how we do it, to see if it actually helps people do creative writing themselves.
Brilliant. Really looking forward to it.
Okay, that's so. Hopefully that'll work.
And if it doesn't, it will still be fun.
Yeah, we'll swear a lot and have a go at things.
Yes, and not mention musicals.
Not unless we need to get the figures up. Yeah, rouse get figures up. There we go. So if I mention musicals, we'll do it that way. Right. Anyway, it's been lovely again, mate. And I really do hope that I hope it for me as well, but I really do hope you start getting out of this
Yeah,
funk that we're in at the moment, because it is a horrid one.
yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun at all. Yeah,
No.
and you've got sort of like the festive period coming up. So yeah, I hope you're better for it.
Oh, that yeah. Well, you know me. I just I'll start drinking a bit of pop, and hopefully that'll sort me out.
Yeah, never hurt anyone.
Bye, Ash.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.